Hello and welcome to another edition of Behind the Scenes, where we, together with some of my colleagues, all of us tell you how we put together another issue of Fortune India magazine. In this particular episode, we will discuss how we actually bring to the reader the March issue of Fortune India, which is actually the startup special. We are calling it India's most promising startups. Let me tell you, it is not a list. It is a selection based on some sectors we feel are buzzing sectors and sectors which are in line with the India growth story. To discuss all that and more with me, I have my colleague Ajita Shashidhar and, of course, the executive editor and the person who has put together this list, V. Keshav Dev, to discuss all the aspects of the list and much more. Ajita will tell us also about the stories she has done, some of the very, very interesting stories in this issue. So I'll start off with you, Keshav. What was the thinking when you decided to launch? Tell everybody how we came across the idea of India's most promising. Because, there are lists and there are startup lists, etc. How did we come across? What was the process we engaged? I think that is something the viewer would like to know.
So I think the way we had decided, I think we had some deliberations also that should we go with valuations or should we go with revenue? And I think that bias towards revenue is something that has been the fundamental bedrock of this promising startups that we have curated for this edition. And we have not touched upon deliberately the valuations.
Valuations, we know what the stories
what
are.
The story is all about.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that while we have top 8 sectors that we have, top 8 to 10 sectors that we have curated in that, the one sector that we have deliberately kept out is the edtech, because what has happened to that whole story. I mean, it was supposed to be the poster boy of the early startup boom, and then post-pandemic it was that. Yeah. And what happened to Byju's and then subsequently to all the other players. It's, if Byju's was the big one, there are others which had a cascading effect of, funding dry up and all of that stuff. But like I said, the interesting part about this thing is that creative destruction was at play, because if one sector went out, you suddenly saw e-commerce, suddenly pick up. And none other than Zepto, today with 5 billion valuation, has now emerged as the poster boy. I mean, you could just see the kind of dynamic at play across sectors. So I think that was the fundamental thing, that we went ahead and picked on the sectors. We kind of curated it down to 8 to 10.
And also in line with what the India growth story
is kind of piggybacking on. So, and the interesting part is the growth paradox comes across. I mean, while these guys have got all the numbers, collectively, I think the top 3 in across 8 sectors have put together 45,000 crores in revenue in 1 year, but their losses collectively are 11,000 crore. So that just goes to show that glide to profitability, that is still some time away.
That's one glide path, unlike what the finance minister is looking at, where she's achieving the results. This is one glide path which looks really challenging, the glide path to profitability. But may I also add, I mean, we've been talking to investors. All of them have now single-minded focus on the path to profits. I think that's one big change, Keshav, from the earlier
So
times.
that's why you're seeing the number of IPOs that have come from this so-called new age tech companies. So I was speaking with Neha Singh of Traction, and she said that while we are all deliberating that they are all loss-making, the markets, they have been able to come to the markets because they have been able to show a path to profitability. Now, whether they achieve that or not is a different question.
But and markets are ruthless.
Yeah, the markets can be ruthless. So, I mean, that one part is why I think startups, despite their losses, are able to come and cash out in the markets. Obviously, they are also making the best of the market sentiment, where, SIPs at $3 billion is like just coming up into the market. So that whole boom in the market is also driving that. But it's not that just about every other startup is able to come and...
Yeah, we've seen pretty much different...
and now with the whole correction in the market, quite a few startups might just hold back their IPOs.
Be the men from the boys, the separating the men from the boys.
So it would be interesting to see how Zepto kind of plays out. So I think Ajita has done a deep dive into Zepto.
Absolutely, so and also I think Ajita did a very detailed story in an earlier issue on the quick commerce phenomenon. And there also she spoke to Zepto and others. So I think the interesting part here is how the quick commerce, as like you said, creative destruction, when edtech has fallen by the wayside, suddenly you have this e-commerce and quick commerce boom. particularly quick commerce is now the the real booming sector.
Right.
So Ajita, tell us about what your experience has been putting these stories together.
So quick commerce, again, it was not so long ago, everyone wrote off quick commerce, right? They said that, delivering, the 10-minute delivery promise will never work. And it was actually pretty much, it came into being during COVID because that's when people were not able to go out and they wanted that convenience. So they said that it'll be just restricted to the COVID time, but after that, it will not because it's just not, the economics of it doesn't work. But I think the quick commerce guys have, quick commerce promoters, the founders have actually proved, in many ways have proved the industry wrong because most of them apparently are very close to EBITDA break even. And also the whole quick commerce model depends on AOVs, that is average order value. So way back in 2020, 2021 when they started, it was around 150 rupees. And now to break even, they need to at least make 600 rupees. And most of them are kind of have touched it or quite close to it.
Tell me, I'm curious, Ajita, about quick commerce. The buzz has always been, or the discussion, that this is a premium kind of an offering where those who really can afford it, want immediate impulse buying, are going in for quick commerce. Do you see that? Because that also leads to how profitable these guys can eventually be.
Quick commerce will
Do you
always
think it
remain
a premium offering?
Yeah, it will remain a premium offering. It will be restricted to the top few cities, metros especially, and then it will probably go into tier 1. I don't see it going beyond tier 2, tier 1, because that kind of an audience, because you pay quite a bit of a premium to make money.
Yes.
They have to charge you for it, right?
Yes.
And I don't think somebody sitting in a market like Jaunpur would, want to pay that 10 rupees extra for delivery. They would rather go to the stores and buy it. So that is why, we are not going to see quick commerce expanding beyond 30, the top 30, 32 cities. And I think that's where all of them are. And if you look at, companies, platforms like Big Basket, so now they've moved 100% to quick commerce.
That's right.
So, they kind of promise this 10-minute, it may not be 10-minute delivery, but they deliver to you in, say, 20, 25 minutes. Then you have the smaller ones, like, I won't say smaller ones, the more premium and the more niche ones, like Nature's Basket getting into, Spencer's, all of them are getting into quick commerce. You have others getting into, like Myntra has got into quick commerce. So the model is evolving. But again, like Zepto, for instance. So the Zepto boys, they started off in 2021. And in 2020, I think, 2020. And that time they were called Kirana Cart. Because that time it was peak of COVID. The two of them were the families were based in Andheri, in Mumbai. So they were only delivering to that, to that vicinity. And, they would pick up stuff from grocery stores, they would pick up stuff from butcher shops and deliver.
So hyperlocal became pan city.
Yes, the hyperlocal became pan city gradually, but then they realized that consumers are not going to be forgiving. They said that, look, now COVID is over. So your competition is the Kirana guy, which is 300 meters away from our homes. So if you don't give us that kind of value, that kind of quality, we'll not buy from you. So then they realized that, picking up from stores and delivering is not a great idea to do. So then they started setting up their dark stores. So, they started partnering with FMCG companies. The FMCG companies initially were very skeptical, to kind of partner with them. Now, you talk to any FMCG CEO, they cannot imagine a strategy beyond. 50% of the e-commerce revenues of most of these companies is coming from quick commerce.
So, Ajita, what I wanted to understand is that earlier it was supposed to be an aggregator model, right? They were supposed to pick. Now it has become an inventory-led model with dark stores.
Yes.
So does that kind of hasten, while it gives you a leverage in terms of revenue and all, but in terms of break-even, how does that kind of play out? And then, Saurav, the other point is just like telecom, we might just end up seeing a duopoly because a lot of other guys without the scale and heft might
and
not be able to.
I think that needs to, like talking of dark stores, that leads to investments, heavy investments.
So they're very, that is where they've done a smart thing. They don't take up, so they are not B2C. Dark stores are not B2C. Right? So they're B2B2C. So they set up dark stores in areas which are beyond the main high street.
Right.
So, you'll have a dark store, suppose in Bandra. So they'll have it somewhere near if you're familiar with Bandra, somewhere near the fisherman's village,
okay.
something like that.
But that's a franchisee model. So that way the inventory-led model may not hurt them as much as because the inventory is not on their books,
no,
right?
no, it is a
It
franchise-led
is
model,
a
and
franchise.
typically there are a lot of kirana store guys who are becoming dark store owners.
So will that be
So
an
that's a-
version 2.0 for kiranas where, kiranas might have to become the dark stores of the future? Do you see that possibility?
Yes, I don't think they have too much of a choice
Yes.
now because the premium in the city kirana stores are getting impacted.
It's a fascinating
They are
time.
either switching to they're partnering with these guys, or they are just completely shutting shop. No, but other interesting thing I noticed when I was reporting for the story is a lot of these kirana store guys have partnered with this kirana tech companies, the retail tech companies, and they are launching their own apps. They are the inventory they are having is not they are kind of regionalizing their inventory. So if you notice, if a kirana store close to your home, most of us go and buy the farsans from them, right? And all of them have some kind of a speciality.
Right.
So they are specializing on that. So and they're also getting the premium ones. So earlier, like if you buy a
So these are the
fancy chocolate, okay, you may not get it in a kirana store, but the guy is also stocking that because he's realizing that there is a thing. So the kirana stores are also pulling up their socks, and the kirana store, kirana economy is a very resilient economy. Okay, even when
When people have
e-commerce
written
came,
it off,
when
and that's
even
not
e-commerce
happened.
came, everyone talked about the death of kirana stores. I myself have written so much about it, but each time, they have kind of. So I think temporarily they are probably kind of losing out, but I'm sure they'll come back.
The other
They'll do
story
something.
which we have, very interesting one in this issue, Keshav, which you've also written, is the Sarvam story. Tell us a little bit about that story and how an Indianized model of AI is working out.
See, unlike in DeepSeek, which kind of created headlines, unfortunately, I mean, I won't say the word unfortunately, it's the way the Indian AI ecosystem is playing out, it's looking more inward. Traditionally, I mean, the DeepSeek and all is out there to go and capture an open AI kind of play. But in India, at least Sarvam, which is I would say is the poster boy of India's AI story, he's looking at leveraging the Indic languages, regional languages, because he sees a bigger market out there. The two co-founders, Raghavan and Pratyush Kumar, they have created this, and their journey has just started. So the potential for someone to create, Indian language-based models.
And I think it's high time. I mean, why should AI always be a global, company which will give us that?
I mean, in one way, you're right that, the opportunity exists for India, but the kind of the valuation and maybe the buzz or, the margins and the growth may not be as phenomenal as you might get for an OpenAI or a DeepSeek, because they grab the headlines because they are catering to a wider audience.
Right.
The moment you talk about an inward-looking model, obviously you will have, I mean, there are enough and more sectors that need those.
But do you think a company like Sarvam can actually compete with the big boys out there eventually?
It is, because it has got a complete edge in terms of, creating an entire ecosystem on Indian languages, which I don't think a DeepSeek or OpenAI would need. And in fact, Sarvam helped Meta, create one of its Indic language. So, I mean, they will need capital obviously to keep growing, and I think they have just started. So they are already in negotiations with 25 companies, conglomerates or enterprises who are going to use their products. So you will see
Because the future in digital also lies in vernacular
kind
local
of thing.
languages,
So
right?
he's saying that it's not going to be type, it's all going to be voice based. So it's all agents are going to take over.
Absolutely.
So I think that way Sarvam will have the edge over anybody else. So it will be a very Indian AI kind of an play. It's unlike an open AI where you're talking of the world.
Yeah.
This is Sarvam will be inward looking.
Tell us a little more about the other segments which we have
In
covered.
fact, before we
this.
move to that, when, since we were talking about AI, I've put up a story, put a story together on Pride startups, and we'll come to that later. But one of the startups I spoke to was a company called Adalat AI.
Okay.
So Adalat AI is a legal transcription company, AI-led transcription company. So the founder Utkarsh was telling me that the Tariq pe Tariq thing, which we talk about in Bollywood, is very much a reality.
Yes.
True.
Because the biggest
Dates.
bane in in our legal system is they just don't get a time for hearing, and it keeps getting postponed, and there are so many people languishing in the prisons of India. And one of a key thing there is each time you have a you go for a
Court
hearing
hearing.
or for a courtroom session, everything is recorded. Okay, it has to be recorded. Everything has to be recorded, and more than often, especially in the district courts, probably the high courts and all would be having a proper system. They note it down, so the judge will actually ask the
And
person to
someone has
stop.
to-
They will write it, and then
So the AI will now take care of all
yes,
that.
and the AI is very different. It's not like you have like Otter AI or whatever. It is. It has got a lot of legal
Understanding.
Latin words in
correct,
it.
correct.
So the transcript thing is very different, very
Right,
difficult.
right.
So he's
So
trying to simplify that.
That's a very
And
important service, actually.
Yeah.
And that's a
So
Pride startup, is it?
it's a Pride
Oh,
startup.
okay,
It's
that's
a Pride
interesting.
startup.
No, the other point, of course, the other big package we have, which Ajita, you have put together in this issue, is that on future-ready workplaces.
Yes.
Now, you can't have a more timely package on workplace, what's going on in the workplace as now, because so much is happening around the workplaces. There are the Gen Z workforce, the hybrid, the debate around hybrid, the number of working hours, that's a huge debate which is playing out. How did we put that together, Ajita, if you could tell the viewers?
So the basis of the listing came from the Fortune 1000 universe. So we have the Fortune 500 companies, we have the next 500 companies. So we have a universe of 1,000 companies. So most of the companies which made it to our list, not most, all of them, are part of our Fortune 1000 list. And this time we did the research a little differently. CLHR was our knowledge partner. And they did it last time. This was the second time we are having this issue. The issue before that, last year's issue, they actually went to, they only spoke to the HR heads of the organizations. And we thought that was becoming a little biased because HR heads will obviously say all good things.
Yes.
So this time we kind of changed the methodology slightly. We actually went and spoke to employees who have quit the organization. And so it's, a considerable part of it
Is also former employees.
Yes. From the
And that is why
ex-employees.
you have
that
seen
was
a
more
drastic
unbiased.
change
Yeah.
There's a
in some of
drastic
the
change.
rankings
Yeah,
of
yeah.
existing.
So this I thought this time we were much more balanced, much
Yes.
more neutral, and again the interesting thing when we talk about future-ready companies is that the thing which stayed with me is sustainability. Sustainability not through an environment lens, but sustainability in terms of building long-term value. So it is kind of, and hiring the right kind of talent. So as you know, talent retention, talent hiring, there's a huge scarcity when it comes to skilled talent.
Right.
And companies are finding it very difficult to hold on to their talent.
Yes.
So they're doing interesting things to kind of ensure that they are able to hold their talent. So for a company like Axis Bank, which is I think they're number 5 in our list. So what they have done an interesting, they have something called, they have a internal job portal which they have launched, which every day the employees get access to it, and it is also for senior management roles. It's not, so it could be even for the CEO of a subsidiary
So mobility
company.
within the company also.
So the
is,
idea, the logic there is, if they are looking out for change, why should they look out beyond
outside.
Axis Bank? Similarly, Zydus, which is on number 1, they also doing a lot of interesting stuff. One of them is they've ensured, so they typically, most of their hires, 80% of their hires are in the manufacturing facility, and they are engineers, they're pharma engineers and things like that. So so when it comes, so they have actually hired engineers. They're part of the HR team. And the whole idea of having engineers in the HR team is because they can hire more efficiently.
Right.
So suppose there's a demand for 100 people, and the HR team will say, no, 100 is too much. We'll only hire 50. So so these people who
Can
are
tell you really
they'll
what-
tell you may not need 100, but you definitely need 80.
Because
So
they know the
they know the
business.
thing. So the whole focus is on how to, and then culture. Culture building, again, they're saying culture is all about experiencing it. And it is not about, kind of merely going and making PPTs on campuses saying that, we are agile, we are flexible, we are a great place to
As
work.
they say, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So culture is critical.
Yes.
But
So-
the other interesting point in this thing, I think Ajita would know better. I mean, what was the impact of AI? At least the one when I spoke to the Access CHRO, she said that their hiring is still on. I mean, they are sensitizing people to how use AI to bring in efficiency. But that whole narrative around, job losses may not really pan out. So what's your take? I mean, when you had an interactions, are they talking of job losses and productive efficiency
They're
coming
not talking
from?
about job losses. They're saying that is all about upskilling. So
Upskilling,
obviously,
correct.
people will kind of, those who are not equipped to, to deal with AI, they will
They have to
kind of
upskill
become
themselves,
redundant. So they
yes.
have to upskill.
So I think that fear factor, I would think, as
Is
we speak, is
gradually
gradually
dying out.
because now people have understood AI is like computerization was,
Yeah.
say,
Correct.
30 years ago. When you needed, you knew it had
It's
to
only
be there.
it's improving your efficiency
It's
level.
just
there.
improving,
Just like
and
us
you have
print
to.
journalists
Yeah,
embracing
exactly, absolutely.
digital.
You have to, yes, and you have
we
to
don't
do
have
it.
a choice.
Exactly.
And-
So you need to do that, and I think people are more and more companies and organizations are understanding that. So two wonderful packages
I
in the
just
March
want
issue.
to-
Yes, please.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to talk about the interesting story we have done on the Pride community.
Yes, please.
So that was kind of an eye-opener for me because, so by Pride I mean the LGBTQI community. And so that is the most marginalized community. The queers are the most marginalized. It is, their challenges are very similar to what women entrepreneurs face. So typically when you talk to any women entrepreneur, 9 out of 10 times they'll tell that it's very difficult for them to raise funds unless they have a male co-founder because they're not taken seriously. But because the investor is kind of an able-bodied, big boys club, so they don't take them seriously. And when it comes to the Pride community, the challenge is far, far grave. It is much, much more what the women go, because again, nobody understands them. Nobody is able to empathize with them. So it was actually very sad. So when I spoke to most of them, interestingly, they don't. Most of them don't want to have a for-profit model, because only for the same reason that it's difficult for them to raise funds.
That's absolutely true.
So what they're doing is they kind of they prefer being a not-for-profit, because if they are a not-for-profit, they will raise money through grants, through CSR funds of companies and things like that, and they will have a small for-profit arm. So,
But is that changing though gradually, or is it still
no,
a big
no,
problem?
it is a big problem. It is a big problem.
Which is where
because-
corporate India needs to play a much larger role.
Yes, yes.
Because
so,
unless-
and then I was talking to a few of them, like a few of those queer entrepreneurs, and they gave me some interesting examples as to how, including queers into your workforce or into your business is actually good for business. And the case which they cited was auto brand Subaru. So apparently in the 80s they started, communication, saying that around the LGBTQI community they would have sorrowful ads, they would have fun takes and things like that. But apparently Subaru, through the whenever there was an economic up and down and auto companies would kind of face the brunt of it, some of them all even went out of business. Subaru maintained has always maintained that stability. So that's what they were trying to say, that
The diversity is also good business sense.
yeah, and 10% of our population is
Yes, yes.
Diversity is a
queer.
good strategy. I mean,
Absolutely.
in
Yeah.
that sense.
And
Yeah,
I don't
it's a
think
new
enough,
business good
enough is
business
understood
strategy.
about it, like she's
Yeah,
saying.
yeah.
And that's
So-
going to be an important one. So, as Ajita says, there's lots to read in the March issue of Fortune India. Of course, the startup package, the most promising startups, and the big other package, which is the the future ready workplaces package, where we talk about companies which have really geared themselves up for the future. So thank you very much for watching, and do not miss to read the March issue of Fortune India. Thank you.
Thank you.